Hello everyone and welcome to the Tank Club. Today we're going to be doing a little High Isle tank preview based on a few things that I've seen on the High Isle preview server that I got a chance to check out over the past couple of weeks. So we've got a few changes coming along for tanks next patch, a few things that seem quite interesting. So we'll start off with champion points. So there's been a few changes to the champion points. Unassailable, Enduring Resolve, Duelist Rebuff and Ironclad have all been reduced. So currently on the live server, you get a 10% damage reduction for those CPs. On the preview server, it's only 6%. So we're going to have a little bit more incoming damage next patch. If we look at the actual amounts that this is going to increase damage, it's not going to be a huge amount. The Exploiter CP has also returned, which means people are going to do 10% more damage to off-balanced enemies. Now, the reason this implicates tanks potentially is because you require lightning staves to cause the off-balance effect. Now, in reality, you've got 4 supports in a group. This is most likely, in my opinion, going to be the healer's job to maintain this. So if you've got 2 tanks with ice staves, you've got 2 healers with lightning staves, you should be able to maintain brittle, and you should be able to maintain off-balance pretty like decent in terms of both ad pulls and boss fights by having those combination of things. So obviously we're going to need to figure this out in raid, but I would say that it's unlikely, especially for like a main tank or a dungeon tank, you're not going to be using a lightning stave. It's not going to be something that comes into play for a tank, especially not in trials as well. When you've got 4 supports, there's no point in taking additional risks on a main tank to run a lightning staff. It's probably going to fall to the healer's responsibility, I would imagine. Now, we'll just have to see when we get there. But that is a big change, especially like sometimes you might have to do it. As an off tank, you may have to do it. So that is something we do have to consider, is the lightning staff is kind of on the return. In terms of gear, there's quite a few gear changes that I noticed on the preview server. So one of the first things is there are no nerfs to Turning Tide. There are no nerfs to Nazare. Those are predicted gear sets that everyone was expecting to be nerfed. Now, the reason why people were expecting that is because when you combine the two together, it's obviously very powerful. You can get 100% uptime of major vulnerability by combining Nazare and Turning Tide and Horns in very well-organized tanks in good groups. If we look at other gear changes, Tremor Scale has had a big change. So this is now not going to be physical pen, it's just overall pen. It's also uncapped pen. So it scales based on so the amount of pen that you get from Tremor Scale is based on your physical and spell resistance. Now I managed to stack 40k spell resistance, and the more resistance I got, the bigger debuff I was given. So I was getting over 3,500 pen just from Tremor Scale. So if you combine Tremor Scale and Crimson Oath, you're getting a lot of pen. The fact that it's uncapped, it's not going to be that useful in terms of the fact that it's uncapped, because if you have to stack 50,000 resistance to get a really high pen value out of Tremor Scale, obviously that's not going to be a good idea. But it's kind of interesting that it's changed now so that it is physical and spell penetration. It's going to be potentially more useful in a few different areas. It definitely helps the fact with the hybridization situation currently in the game. But yeah, Tremor Scale changed, and it scales, the pen scales off physical and spell resistance. One of the other big things was the new set, Pearlescent Ward. Now I've tried this out, I've tested this out in combat, and actually I'm really interested in this set because I do believe this is going to be a gear set that you're going to use instead of Powerful Assault for beginner groups. And the reason why I say that is because it doesn't appear to have any range limit. You're going to give your group weapon and spell damage. It has like a really nice, it's a really cool visual. It's kind of like the old Ebon and Worm gear sets where they have like the floating orbs going around, but it's kind of like metal orbs that are floating that kind of glow. Looks really cool. So the few things I tested with this gear set, Pearlescent Ward, is yes, it will provide the spell damage and the weapon damage if your whole group are alive. As soon as somebody dies, that gets turned off and it converts to damage reduction. So it's really strong damage reduction as well. So a few different tests that I did, I tested it with a companion, and as soon as the companion died, so let's say I took a hit of this so it's blocked and unblocked damage as well, which makes this really strong. So I took a hit of 9,715 against St. Olms, I then killed my companion, and I ran to the other side of the room, so the complete opposite side, nowhere near. It was way further than 28 meters, and then the unblocked hit that I was taking was 5,913. So this is a huge amount of damage reduction. When I blocked, it was 3,206, and when I was with the companion dead, it was 1,951. So huge damage reduction. This is definitely going to be a gear set for progression groups, for beginner groups, for groups where people are having any kinds of issues, because it's the fact that when your group are alive, you've got more damage. When people are dead, you're taking a ton less damage. So I'm really interested in the new gear set from the new trial, Pearlescent Ward. It looks absolutely fantastic. Now, it doesn't work when you're dead. Someone was asking that, I think I saw the other day. When you die, the effect is gone. So the people don't benefit from the effect when you're dead. So the person wearing the gear set needs to be alive for those benefits to be there. So yeah, this, like I say, it's going to increase weapon and spell damage when everyone's alive. If one person dies, you're going to get decreased damage. It's just decreased damage. It's not block mitigation. It's not resistances. It's just complete, reduced damage. So very strong option for off tanks. Even some situations, like you got to think Barsai hard mode, Rockgrove hard mode, where there's a lot of damage, or situations where the off tank's out of group. So let's say you're in an off tank. You're an off tank in a Vast +2 progression, and you've got to do lots and lots of stacking. So your PA uptime's really poor. Use this gear set instead, because you're still going to provide some weapon and spell damage. It doesn't have a range limit. It's easy to maintain on your group, and when people die, they get that reduced damage, which is going to help them survive. So you can get the reses, get people up, and then you give the damage boost. I really like the look of this gear set, and it's a new idea as well. It's a fresh idea. It provides the benefit of both damage and protection, which is something we haven't really seen before, or when we have seen, it's not been done very well. So think of gear sets like Vrol's Command, very poor quality, very ineffective, requires a lot of micromanagement, and then you've got a gear set like this where it's just gonna you just stand there and someone dies, and then you've got a ton of protection. So really good looking set. In terms of the new trial, really enjoyed doing that. I've done the new trial already, and what a great trial Dreadsail Reef is. From what I could see, there's a lot of interest. It looks very mechanic heavy, which is what we keep asking for. Well, I do at least. From a tank's point of view, it was very interesting. So there's a lot of potential to die in the trial. Just walking in different areas, there's lots of ledges and edges that you can fall off. It's going to require a lot of work. The ad pulls. Some of the ad pulls look really tricky. There's one stage where there was 15 ads walking towards me. So being able to pick up Taunt of All Lows, and they're all really hard hitting ads as well. So that's going to be interesting to figure out how we're going to do the ad pulls, and how we're going to deal with all of the different ads that are spread out all around the room. The boss fights, again, very interesting. The first boss was very different, something very different to what we've seen before. Ads coming in different. There was two bosses, two different things happening. You had to do a number of different mechanics. I won't spoil too much. On the second boss, again, it was a very interesting fight where there's a boss, and then there's another boss spawning that's a bit smaller, and another one, and you got to do a few different things with it. It didn't just seem like it was high damage. It was mechanics, and there was damage phases, or if you missed the mechanic, something happened, then there was a lot of damage. It wasn't just damage and focusing insane amounts of damage on the tanks. It did seem like there was only damage if you didn't play the correct mechanic, which for me is a great thing. One of my favourite trials, V-Half, mechanic heavy fight. Yeah, the damage isn't that high in there anymore, unless you're doing burn strategies, but it is a very interesting fight from a tank perspective, because there's so many different things you have to do, and this new trial, Dreadsail Reef, seems very similar in that regards. The last boss, very unique fight, nothing we've ever seen before. Again, there's certain mechanics, and you can take a ton of damage if you don't play the mechanics correctly, but it's interesting to have a boss like the last boss in Dreadsail Reef. So I'm really excited to get in there on the PTS on Monday when that is out. We'll be going in on Saturdays. I'm in a PTS trial group doing the veteran Dreadsail Reef, so that's going to be good. The new trial, the reward for the trifecta, another mount, so that's going to be cool. Aside from that, yeah, I'm really excited for High Isle. Obviously, I haven't talked about a range of other things here, like the card game and stuff like that. There's a lot of conversations, a lot of topics happening around the Elder Scrolls Online and the forums and YouTube and Discord, everywhere about that. I'm not really going to get into it. It's not going to affect us as a tank. There's no benefits to it. I'm not really much of a fan of the card game or card games in general, so it's not something I'm really going to be focused any time and attention into. But the trial and the new things that are coming along for tanks, we'll be having a lot more information as things develop on the PTS and when things go live in June. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.